Hey, thanks for joining me, Yetta and
Ken.
Wow. We don't always get to do this together anymore. We've got so many amazing people to connect with and hang out with on the airwaves that we don't always get to be together.
And what show is this, Yetta?
This is giving your kids a hand up and not a hand out.
Oh, I thought it was the inside track on real estate.
They already know that.
Do they?
They got the intro.
Oh, the intro happened first. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So if your kids, we're giving them a hand up.
Right. Not a hand out.
Awesome.
And when we think kids, we're thinking teenagers, right? Are we thinking young adults? Are we thinking children? When do we stop with the hand outs and start with the hand ups with our kids? Is it at 2? Is it at 10? Is it when they're ready to buy their first house? What is it?
That's an interesting question. I think it's all the way along.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
And actually, I have a story that you have to listen to, and Ken doesn't know I'm going to do this.
Uh-oh.
My little grandson, who's 3, I did a little video with him. I do a weekly, or daily actually, Yetta Raw and Real, just a little thing on YouTube, 1 to 3 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes, 1 minute, but not usually 1 minute. Anyway, and one day I was overseeing him, and this little 3-year-old is taking his money that he earned from doing something around the house and putting it in his jars and dividing out his money. And so we did a little raw and real on that. So you may want to go back and watch that. So there's never too young a time to start teaching great financial principles that will help them when it's actually time to buy that house. Because one of his jars, that's what made me think of it, that's where my brain went, was his house jar.
So he has a house jar?
Yeah.
And he has a
giving and tithing jar.
Okay.
And then he had a spending jar. And he said, I can get things like groceries, special groceries.
Special groceries. Nice. And did he have a education jar?
No, those were his 3 right now.
Okay.
He's only 3, so I think they're going to introduce additional jars as he starts to get a little bit older. We're working with nickels and things.
Sounds like the wealth formula that I'm writing right now, doesn't it?
It does. It sounds exactly like that. So there's the wealth formula book. The reason I let Ken talk about this stuff, no, I don't let him do anything. He talks about whatever he wants, is he wrote a great book. He's the author of the wealth formula, and he's writing another book.
Yes, it's called The Wealth Formula for Parents of Kids 1 to 21.
Right.
So really how to grow your kids up, because first of all, they model what they see.
Right.
So get the first book, the Wealth Formula book, because when you start modeling the behaviors that will cause you to become wealthy, actually, then your children will catch that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Which is amazing. And ours, I think, did catch most of that. They really started when they were 7 and 10 with all of that. And then they continued learning those skills, because that's really, when they were 7 and 10 is really when we started to get a handle on our finances.
That journey, yes.
Before that, we were scary people when it came to our money. Well, in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But anyway, we won't go down that road.
So we had the jar system for them and for us.
And for us. We used our own jar system. And then the kids did as well. And as they got older, they had different labels on their jars. And as they got more control of things that they wanted to manage, right, then the amounts changed, the percentages changed, and all of that.
It's interesting that Ryan has chosen a house jar, because we didn't have a house jar when he was growing up.
No, we didn't.
No, we had an education jar, a spending jar, a tithing jar, and a charity jar.
Yeah. Yeah, they had 4 when they were that age, like 7 and 10 and thereabouts. And no, Ryan decided, and we didn't coach him on that. I'm just hitting that now. We didn't coach him to tell his kids to start with a house jar.
No, but he's all about building wealth through real estate.
Exactly, which came naturally to him because we did give them a hand up throughout their childhood. And then at 20, each of our kids bought their first homes.
And what's interesting is the teaching of the money and putting money into jars teaches the kids to add and subtract and divide and do percentages and all the basic math that we need to know. And it gives them a real appreciation for money. Do you know what I heard the other day?
What did you hear, Ken?
That Monopoly now has a debit card or a credit card type thing, and the bank's gone. There's no banker, there's no cash. They're not working with money anymore.
No, you're kidding.
No, I'm not. So
there's no like paper money in the game?
No, it's all done with debit cards and loans and stuff. It's electronic. And so kids aren't even learning.
Use a computer?
No, like a board game. So kids aren't even knowing what
I'm confused right
what
now.
money
I
is.
still have the old Monopoly. I'm going to keep playing with that one.
But like the biggest thing used to be you'd give one of your kids to be the banker, and they would learn how to make change and how to count money, and that part of the game's gone, and now they've lost the appreciation for what money really is and that you work for it, because kids these days are going, well, Dad, you just put your card in the machine, right?
Yeah.
And the machine spits out money, or you just use your card at the grocery store or the restaurant or the gas station. And so there's no appreciation for money and the worth of money and how you work for money.
Wow. And even how to calculate the math around money.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you've been into a store lately, if it's a younger person working at the counter, if you give them some cash and then give them some coins, and if they've already punched in the amount of money that you were handing them, they won't know how to fix the change because you give them some extra change.
Some do. And some don't.
Most don't.
And I know it's surprising because I have done that from time to time, and I'm going, well, the math is this. And they go, no, the math is this. And it's like they need to go get their iPhone.
Turn the
calculator on and put in the number. Mm-hmm. And it's usually because we've given them the change to make it even change, so we can get rid of the coins in our purse. So it's not a complicated calculation.
Yeah, well, sometimes I'll give if it's $10.40, I'll give a 20 and a loonie so they don't get a whole bunch of coins back. I get 60 cents and a $10 bill, and they struggle with that.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So Monopoly is a good thing. You want to get the old ones. Going to garage sales for Monopoly games is awesome. The other game that we absolutely love and our kids are still playing, and our son plays with his nephews and with anybody he can get his hands on, is the cash flow game. Mm-hmm. Which
by Robert Kiyosaki.
Right, which we have a cash flow game for children as well as a cash flow game for adults. And by the time Ryan was probably 8 or so, he decided the cash flow for kids was juvenile and he needed to play with the adult one. Mm-hmm. So they're both amazing games that help us understand the value of money and even what works and what doesn't work and why we might want that kind of investment and why we wouldn't want that kind of investment and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then it applies to real life.
Yes.
Later.
It sure does. It sure does. So what parents do, kids model.
Yes.
And so we've made some mistakes in the past.
We don't want to admit those on air, do we?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't mind. And fortunately, our kids were at the age where they were really catching the financial part.
Yeah.
When we started going to church and we started tithing, we started saving, we started living on what we had left. Rather than
right.
living and then thinking at the end, oh, do I have anything left to tithe or anything left to save? We did it on the front end, and that really transformed our lives.
Right, and it has theirs as well. So one of the principles we learned, and we were not always there, is we first tithe, then we save. And somehow when we started tithing at the beginning, it was hard, it was difficult. We didn't know what on earth we were doing and why on earth we would do it. And once we actually started to get some mastery over that one little behavior, then the idea of saving seemed to follow automatically. It wasn't even like we had to put a lot of effort into the saving piece. It just became the natural piece. And then we created a charity jar in addition to, so we sort of had 3 on the front end. And then the rest of it we lived off of, and we created saving jars for long-term spending. So they're still spending accounts, and yet we needed extra money. So there was no emergency when we needed a new car, when we needed a new furnace, or we needed even a vacation.
Yeah.
It was all saved up for.
And we're a little off the kid side of this.
I know.
And yet I really do want to touch on this because it's a bit of a marriage saver, is what we learned when we were going through this process of learning what to do with our money is we put in 4 other jars, right? There was his big buy and his money to blow.
You're right.
And her big buy and her money to blow.
Yeah.
And the beauty with having what used to be called mad money, right?
Right.
Just that loose spending money that you can spend, is that that allowed you to do whatever you wanted, whether it was get a manicure, pedicure, or whatever.
Or buy scrapbook supplies that you just couldn't fathom anybody would do that.
That's right. Anything like that. Or allow me to go golfing or buy a new hockey stick or something without any judgment, because it came out of that jar.
Right.
It was our spending money.
Right.
On the big buy, I know I saved for a long time for a big screen TV.
Exactly.
And one Christmas you gave me the money out of your jar, or some of the money out of your jar.
Yeah, I gave you 1,000 of my dollars.
Yeah, that was big.
That was big.
That was a big gift.
I didn't believe in big screen TVs. I didn't like them. I didn't want them. I don't like TV. I just
Well,
don't
you
have
didn't
time
believe in them? Like they don't exist? Don't believe in them?
Like I don't need one.
Oh, okay.
And Ken was all about the biggest big screen he could get. So at that time, the biggest thing out there was a 72-inch, and had to have it. And so we'd been fighting really and disagreeing.
Fighting?
Okay, disagreeing. Heated fellowship around how to spend money. And by creating those independent jars, when we did that, we said, this is your portion, this is my portion. We did it by percentages because we found that easier because of the way we earn income. You could do a dollar amount, doesn't really matter. And then it stopped all of that disagreement, really. And I just said, whatever you want. And I even ended up feeling so good about that process and that system that when he came up short and he'd been saving a really long time, I was feeling kind of sad for him because he actually...
You should have just told me to make some more money.
I just helped him. And I transferred 1,000 of my dollars to his, and then he could go get his TV and put him over the top, which was kind of fun.
Nice.
And so doing that with your kids, even that same style, so although we're talking about us as adults, letting the kids, and that's how we did it, their spending money that went into their spending jars, we had no judgment on it. Short of if it wasn't legal, obviously we'd have a challenge with that. Beyond that, though, I can remember Candace, some of her first money, she wanted to buy lollipops. And it was not like 5 lollipops, like 144 lollipops.
Like Costco giant container.
Giant container. And we thought, what a waste of money. And yet we'd established this policy and this rule in our family, this principle to live by, that if it was your spending money, you could do whatever you want with money. We couldn't have any input.
No. And Ryan would save his up and save it up for Lego.
Yeah, $200 kits of Lego and all that kind of stuff. So very different spending habits.
Candace couldn't believe he'd waste his money on that.
Exactly. And he couldn't believe she'd waste her money on lollipops. And yet it took all of the pressure, even in the home, of how the kids saw money. And by the time they were in their 20, they both had saved up money for down payments. They both had invested money in things that allowed them to go to school, and we helped them as well with school because it was about a hand up, not a handout. We had set aside monies, which we'll talk about in a minute, that allowed them to be well positioned to buy a home at that age.
Yeah, and we put that money into our ESP for their education. Another thing, a little tip, I don't know if any of you have had this situation where you go on vacation, you go to Walt Disney or wherever, and the kids are constantly, can I have this? Can I buy this? Can I buy this t-shirt? Can I buy this, this souvenir? Can I buy a candy? Can I,
it's constant.
It's can I, right?
Yeah.
And then your whole vacation is no, 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 no.
Or yes once in a while. You have to say yes once in a while, except there's a lot more opportunity to say no than there is to say yes.
And I'd rather say yes.
Right.
And so what we did was we gave them money up front.
Right.
And we said, okay, here's your vacation money.
Right.
Just like we have a certain amount of vacation money, you have a certain amount. And you can spend it any way you want.
Right.
And when it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
So it was really neat to see kids making financial decisions based on knowing that there was only a certain supply for that particular reason.
Right.
Right? And we worked diligently to teach our kids that there is abundance out there.
Right.
And it's what you choose to spend it on.
Right. It wasn't that we couldn't afford. So one of the things we learned not to say is we can't afford it. Because it really isn't, even if it was that we really couldn't justify that amount of money, it wasn't the affordability that made us say no. It was more, that's just not how we choose to spend our money.
Yeah, we have other priorities for our resources that God's given us, right?
Right.
And so that's very important. The other piece is if you've got, kids that are thinking about getting into their first home, or when I say kids, it might be 20-somethings, it might be 30-somethings that are looking for their first home. The beauty is the government allows us to take out some RRSP money.
Right. Yeah. That's an amazing opportunity, really.
Up to $25,000 per person. And then basically you pull it out tax exempt.
Yeah.
You're allowed to use it on your house. You have to buy a house within 60 days of taking it out. Mm-hmm. And that money you have to pay back 1/15 per year.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much a no-brainer because the money's going back in.
Right.
And if you don't put it in a particular year because you had a lean year or something went wrong, they just charge you that tax on that 1/15 that should have gone back in.
Right. He's talking about when you're to redeposit it back into the RSP.
Yeah.
Right. Because there'll be some lean years where maybe you don't put anything into your RSP as your initial either, right? So there's a couple of different things there.
Yeah. Now another great place to store money to buy a house now is your TFSA.
Yes.
Because it goes in, now you don't save any tax putting it in. So it's one of the things you might want to chat with us about and sit down and have a consultation around what's the best way, especially if you've got money. You might put it into an RSP, it has to be in for 90 days, then you can pull it back out for your home ownership, and you get a big tax refund, which will help on your home ownership or buy some furniture or whatever, or pay back part of the loan, whatever you choose to do with it. So it's pretty cool. When I say loan, it's loaning your own money out of the RSP.
Right.
To buy a house.
Yeah, it's your money.
It's not a bank loan to get an RSP. Not a good idea.
No, Ken's really not about that. Neither am I, actually. He just has stronger opinions than I do around those things.
Yes.
So giving our kids a hand up, what are some of the other things we can do? We can model for them. We can show them what to do with money at a young age, and we can help them physically do it.
Yep.
We can cause them to play games and to have experiences where they actually have experience with the real...
Yeah, not an electronic game.
Yeah.
A real life game.
Yeah, a real life game, so they can touch it, feel it. There's the RSPs, there's the TFSAs. Now, TFSAs kids can't have, and RSPs kids can't have. That's something we're doing for them.
Well, that's kids under 18.
Right.
Don't forget, our kids are our kids, right? Just because our kids are now 20, just going on 28 and 31, they're still our kids.
Right.
Right? And they've married and they've left and they've cleaved, which is awesome. So we no longer, have as much say as we used to. They still, fortunately, will come to us for advice.
Right, for counsel, for input, for wisdom. I like to call it for wisdom.
Yeah. Somebody actually the other day came and they hadn't seen me in quite a number of years. They said, "Ooh, you've got a lot of gray happening." I said, "That's a lot of wisdom there."
It's all good.
Yeah.
We'll take the gray with the wisdom.
Yes.
Or the wisdom with the gray. I'm not sure which way it goes.
I think who knows?
Okay. And so what other ways can we help our kids?
Well, helping them to be great stewards of their money, of God's money, really. And by teaching them to tithe up front, it becomes like a habit, like a muscle. You build that muscle. And then as their income goes up, they won't have a problem continuing to tithe because it's a normal process. Right. They recognize that they're going to live on, say, 80% of their income. Right. Because 10's going to the Lord and 10's going to savings. Now I'm going to live on 80%. And you set up from the beginning what your lifestyle will be, and it saves so much headache. It really does. So that's a beautiful thing. Teaching kids the difference between needs and wants.
Okay, so this is a fun little story. Candace is going to not like me sharing this probably, and yet, I have many times. So as a child, one of her needs from her thought process was the high-end shampoos and conditioners. Absolutely. The expensive stuff. from my perspective, that was a want, and what she needed was shampoo and conditioner that cleaned her hair, that did the job, that caused it not to be tangly and all that sort of stuff. And so it was quite a arduous conversation in our house. Often we would have, it was not pretty. And so what I would do is for birthdays, occasionally I would buy her the high-end shampoo and conditioner and give her that as a gift, because I could justify that just as well as I could buy her a frame for her picture in a room or something like that. And so I would give her those extravagances that I saw as wants, not needs, for special occasions. And it made her crazy as a teenager. She was not happy about it. And yet now, as a mother herself of 5 kids and living within her means and below her means, which is one of the things that we taught them to do, she actually follows a very similar philosophy with her kids, distinguishing what are wants and what are needs. So sometimes what somebody perceives as a want is not what somebody else perceives as a want and or a need.
Absolutely.
Kind of neat to be able to teach your kids that without them convincing you that you got it all wrong, because I'd have a hard time even today losing an argument around that particular topic.
Yeah. The other thing I think we can do for our kids is teach them the value of work.
Yeah.
Whether it's scriptural, teaching about working unto the Lord and really being an example for those fellow workers. But also I think it's not being idle. Because if we allow our kids too much idle time, then they're learning that, and they're going to have a harder time getting a job. There's nothing wrong with a 13-year-old, 12-year-old, or whatever learning to cut grass, or learning to bag groceries, or pump gas. Although not too many service stations that pump your gas for you anymore. I used to pump gas for free just because I thought it was fun when I was a kid, when it was a full service station, and I just hung around, and when someone drove up, I'd start pumping their gas.
Did you get tips?
Nope. Actually, I did. I think I got 1 or 2 tips.
Because I remember you telling me you did.
Yeah, I think I did. I waited on tables. I made beds and cleaned hotel rooms and did all kinds of things as a young adult. Well, not even adult, young teenager. And so when I was 15, I bought my first car, cash. Right. I couldn't even drive it. I sat in the park and, in the driveway and listened to the radio. I had to charge the battery every once in a while because I couldn't drive the thing. But as soon as I turned 16, I had my license and I was on the road.
And so teaching our kids sort of the work ethic is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's a way of giving them a hand up, is really, and when we talk about a hand up, sometimes it's not the monetary cash, it's the values, the principles, the education behind living a certain way.
Yeah, and whether it's, and sometimes even it's charity work where they're not getting paid is still going to create that work ethic. It's finding a senior that maybe needs their lawn raked or cut or whatever. I know Ryan bought his own lawnmower, and he had a lawn cutting business.
Yeah, he started that when he was 11.
Yeah, and so some people, I said, you might want to just go cut this person's lawn because they're struggling or whatever, and he started to learn that sometimes you just did something for free, and other times you charge. You got a contract, you send out marketing, you knocked on doors. Yeah. It's amazing what kids can do.
And word of mouth.
Yeah.
Because you can go to your parents' friends first, start where it's safe and comfortable, and he did those things, and yet he would then get one job, and then they would tell someone, and then he'd get another job.
Yeah, and I think it's okay for parents to help find their kids something to do. Yeah. Somewhere to work. I think that's really important, because I think a lot of children sit at home. When I say children, I'm talking like teenagers, sit at home because they don't know how to go look for a job. Right. And they're nervous about it or whatever. And so setting the expectation that they're going to look for a job and then assisting them in doing that is hugely important.
Yeah, because even for us as adults, it's often who we know as much as what we know. that creates opportunity and career possibilities and stuff for us. So start with the little kids around that.
So probably the wealth formula for parents of children aged 1 to 21 will be out at some point. One last tip is for a hand up, if you got a student going to college or university, what a great time to invest with them. Buy a property for them to live in.
Yes.
And we did that with Ryan. Even though he was in Ottawa and we were close enough to drive, we could have bought him a car that depreciates, right?
Yeah.
And he could have lived at home, but we chose no car, get a house near the college, rent it out to students. He graduated with $100,000 in equity.
Right. And he lived in the furnace room, so he wasn't living in great surroundings, and yet he rented out every room possible. And we actually, the only thing we did for him on that, he saved the down payment. We gave him some additional down payment that he paid us back.
Yeah, he paid it back.
We refinanced it, and he carried the entire house himself. We didn't put any money in that.
And he still owns that property.
He still owns it.
It's a rental.
Yeah.
Investment property.
So you got a great property to talk about that you don't want to miss out on.
Yeah, this is a phenomenal property just south of Manotick.
Yeah.
In near Calton Golf and Yacht. Although there's not really yachts anymore, but it's Calton Golf.
It's in there. It's not near it. It's part of it.
This is a beautiful 4-bedroom, sort of traditional 2-story.
Yeah.
Back's a conservation area.
I love conservation.
Yeah,
has all the trees, the birds, the wildlife.
Gorgeous, especially this time of year.
Yeah.
It has a 3-car garage.
Yes.
And a totally remodeled, renovated, beautiful flooring, hardwood flooring. The kitchen's been redone, granite countertops. The ensuite is gorgeous. It's got the glass shower. It's got this freestanding tub, the modern freestanding tub. So you walk into this home that maybe, I don't even know the age of it, maybe let's say 30 years old, but it feels like you're going into a home that's really a couple years old.
Right.
And so that's a great property. And it's
well priced.
Yes, $589 on a beautiful country lot on well and septic, which gives you a nice big lot. Yeah. And it's really...
And it's close to where we hang out. So you can come hang out at our office, and we actually have canoes and kayaks that you can use on the back channel.
Well, you could, yeah.
You could. Yeah. So there's some more perks.
Sure.
And it is...
So who would they call, Yetta?
Oh, they could call you.
That? Okay.
Or they could call me, or they could call anybody on the Dekker team, and they simply call 613-860-4663. That's 860-HOME, because we're all about finding you a great home and also helping you sell the home that you have if it's time to move to a different one.
Mm-hmm. So our email is info@dekkerteam.com if you'd like to have any questions answered, if you'd like to get a value on your home, or you need to buy one or invest in one. We're here to help. 613-860-4663.